Okay, well, we've got around 150 odd people online now, and the numbers are sort of only ticking up very slowly. So we might make a start. Firstly, I want to thank everyone for joining me this morning. It shows you are committed to improving vehicle interaction safety in New South Wales mines, and particularly, obviously, the quarry sector. For those of you who haven't met me before or seen me on video, my name is Anthony Margetts. I'm the Chief Inspector of Mines for New South Wales, which obviously incorporates all of our quarries as well across the state. So firstly, I just want to acknowledge the country that we meet on today and where you're meeting, that is Aboriginal land and the traditional custodians of that land before we make a start. Just some really quick housekeeping rules. So it's best to keep your video off if it's not already turned off, and your microphone's on silent. There'll be a question and answer session at the end. So if you can hold your questions until the end, or if you want to put a question in the chat, we can answer those when we get there. Just in terms of how you do that, it's pretty straightforward. You should see a little chat icon pointing to the laser there on the screen right now. And then just make sure when you do ask a question, you put it onto all panelists and attendees so everybody can see your questions, and that just saves getting double up questions basically as we go. When we get to the Q&A session at the end, if you want to raise your hand, you can, or if you feel like you can talk in, turn your mic on and talk, that's fine as well. Feel free to do that. We are recording today's webinar as well, and that's mainly because in case people who have registered and they've missed out and they can't join us this morning, or just for everybody to be able to hear what we talk about today. So I want to emphasise today what I'm talking about is a new direction for vehicle interaction risk management in New South Wales, and a lot of you have already started this journey, which is great. And I guess today is really discussion for those maybe who haven't or are sort of tentatively making a start, and really just setting some very clear expectations as to why we're doing this as a regulator, and what we expect from the industry and the benefits we think that will provide. So it's a change in the way that we're regulating, and it's also a change for you in the way that you manage vehicle interaction safety at your mine sites. So before we begin today, I'm going to play a very quick video just for 2 minutes. This is the beginning of our video that will launch later this year at the Mine Safety Seminar at the end of the month. But it really does set the scene, for why we're here. It makes it quite personal.
One of the toughest things that I found as a result of this incident was telling my wife Trace about it, and it was hard, right, to go home and tell your wife that potentially, there was a chance with a second's difference that I might not have come home today, and that was really tough because I've never planned that, right? I've always planned that I will be home to my wife and kids at the end of shifts. I was involved in a near miss between a light vehicle and a haul truck. We were doing a shift change, so I was driving around in the light vehicle with the open cut examiner knocking off night shift. The open cut examiner that was coming on shift was in the passenger seat. I was in the back seat along with the statutory superintendent. We came to a corner and were travelling around that corner talking about general mine conditions. And what I remember of the incident is the passenger yelled out stop at the same time as our safe mine system alerted us. We immediately stopped the car, and when the dust settled, I was looking through the front windscreen at the bumper bar of a haul truck about 15 metres away. The piece that really hit home for me is I only really needed one layer to fail in our systems, right? If that passenger was distracted on a mobile phone or some other device and they didn't yell out stop, if the truck driver was asleep from a fatigue-related event, if our water cart had watered the corner, we didn't need much to go wrong for that to be a potential fatal outcome. And I thought, we're pretty lucky, and I don't like living by luck, so we needed to fix our processes, which we went on and did. My kids will tell you this, and Dad's catchphrase or his motto in life is effort equals reward, and I think that's the opportunity for us as an industry, right? I think the more effort we all put in to review our controls against the TRG, the absolute best chance that the reward is every employee that works for us or is known by us gets to go home to their families at the end of their shift.
Okay, so there we have it. It's a very personal message from Glenn Main, who's the mining manager up at Bengalla. But I guess one of the things he really touches on there as well is that, you know, this is a collective industry effort. For this change to be really effective, and I will really make this point all the way through the presentation, I need all mine sites, all companies in New South Wales getting on board, so we can really unlock the true value of this TRG, which would be collaboration and sharing the knowledge between sites and between sectors. So I'll move on. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different at the start. I'm going to talk about what the future might look like if we have this TRG implemented effectively across New South Wales. I'll then talk about why the TRG is needed, the journey that we've been on as a regulator, and some of the lessons of the past, and particularly around collision avoidance technology. We'll talk about what's in the TRG. I won't talk about that in too much detail, but just a quick overview and why it's different. I'll then talk about how you can apply it at your mine and the basic steps of how you do that. I'll then talk about the benefits of that and the regulator's expectations, and then what's next, which is, I guess, the ongoing steps for the regulator. So, as I said, I'm going to do something a little bit different this morning. I'm going to talk about a vision of the future if this TRG is effective. So if you look ahead a few years, okay, so 26, 27, and 28, you can imagine that the New South Wales mining industry would look like when the surface TRG is fully in place. Across the state, from the smallest quarry to the largest operation, every site is working from the same layered defence framework, the same 9 layers, the same language, and the same expectations. Engineers, operators, inspectors, contractors all speak the same language about vehicle interaction risk. And when somebody says, you know, layer 6 operating compliance or layer 8 advisory systems, everybody knows what that means and how it connects to their mine and to their role. And because we're unified, learning travels faster. And this is the key. A solution developed at one site, a smarter traffic layout, fatigue system, a new awareness tool is shared, refined, and it's rolled out across the industry within weeks, not years. We no longer solve the same problem in isolation. We solve it once and we solve it together. We replace duplication with collaboration. And then as a result, collisions are rare, near misses are analysed and prevented from reoccurring. And safety conversations, importantly, have shifted from who's at fault to which layer failed and how do we strengthen it. The regulator and industry are working together to improve performance of controls. Contractors move between sites with confidence because the rules are the same. And communities, importantly, communities see an industry that genuinely learns and acts together. And that's what a unified industry looks like. It's one framework, it's one language, and it's one purpose. Everyone goes home safe. So that's what the TRG, if we do this collectively as an industry, you know, the regulator, you guys on the call, if we do this together properly, it will actually create that for us in the future. So why do we need this TRG? Well, it is the number one incident or number one hazard that we have in surface mining operations across New South Wales. So this graph here just shows all the incidents we've had over the last 5 years. Just in a simple little Pareto chart, you can see up here, number one, surface vehicle interactions is number one. It is followed closely by fire and explosion, or fire or uncontrolled fires, and that probably gives you a good insight into what we're going to really try and tackle next. But the potential that we see in this area is the key. It's not just the number one incident that we're seeing, it's also the highest potential consequence that we're seeing across the industry. And if you look at just quarries in New South Wales, this graph shows basically the number of incidents we see from quarries that are related to surface vehicle interactions each quarter. And you can see the trend from 2021 through to 2025 is not good. Okay, you cannot spin this any other way. It's not good in quarries. You know, if this trend continues, and you can look at over 10 years and it's the same trend, if it continues, you know, our luck will run out. We had a fatality a few years ago in a quarry. This trend's only telling me that we're going to have more. So we need to do something different. So why is this happening? So I know that the industry and quarries have been trying, you know, to avoid vehicle interaction incidents. The regulator, you know, we've thrown a lot at this over the last 5 years, especially, and the industry in general is doing a lot to try and, you know, really turn the dial on vehicle interaction incidents. But when we went back and we analysed a few years worth of data of the things that are, you know, the incidents that have been reported to us, what we're seeing is, I guess, is a complete mismatch between what the problem is and how we're trying to solve it. And it actually becomes very clear. And one key point I want to make is that if anyone's operated heavy equipment, and I have myself, I've driven a truck and a dozer on shifts, it is absolute fertile ground for human limitations. The challenge isn't actually in operating it. The challenge is maintaining awareness and maintaining your concentration over the many shifts and days and weeks and months that you operate. When you're operating at night shift, when you're meant to be asleep, that's the challenge of, you know, operating mobile equipment. And from the incident data we receive, this, you know, I guess the human limitation of getting distracted, fatigued, being complacent, getting forgetful, agitated, we see that human limitation come to the surface all the time. And the most common causal factors that we see in investigations is, you know, there was a lack of situational awareness. The operator lost situational awareness, and they were coming up to an intersection or something like that, and they were distracted, or they didn't follow procedures. And, you know, frankly, some of the procedures we've seen out there, you know, they're a bit too complicated. They're hard to follow. So that's, you know, that's part of the issue. But they're the two key causal factors that we're seeing out there: lack of situational awareness and not following procedures. So the research also showed us how the industry is responding to this issue over here. And what we're seeing is a corrective action approach that doesn't address some of these fundamental limitations. This is basically what we find is that there's another risk assessment review, which is good. We encourage that. However, there's very limited higher order controls, and we're seeing a lot of admin controls as a corrective action. So things like, we're going to run another toolbox talk, we're going to update the procedure, or we're going to retrain the worker. So my challenge to the industry is, how do these three things here solve these fundamental issues over here? And the answer quite clearly is it doesn't. And that's why we're seeing that graph continue to go up, like we saw on the last slide. We've actually got the wrong approach generally. Some mines are doing really well. I'm not throwing everybody in the same basket here, don't get me wrong. However, from a general point of view, this is what we see. So we need a different approach. Again, we need something that brings us together under a common structure and language that enables us to share our knowledge and lessons from each other. And this TRG that we've released is how we do that. It's a layered defense approach that builds resilience into the system, not just the person. I'll say that again. It builds resilience into the system, not the person. And I said this at a seminar, at the mechanical engineering seminar early this year. I mean, show me a mine that has somehow re-engineered humans so they don't suffer from these failings. And the answer is obviously there's nowhere out there. You know, we all suffer from these failings as humans. We all have limitations. So we need to do something different. I should point out that as a regulator, we've been on a journey ourselves, starting all the way back here in March in 2022. We held a collision avoidance forum. We did that in partnership with the Minerals Council. We held another large forum about a year later. We had over 200 and something people at both of those forums, a mix of suppliers and industry representatives and people from the industry itself. So our position on this has been quite considered. There's been a discussion paper, we've had a deep dive, we've had the Adverse Vehicle Interaction Committee last year, and as a result, we've released this TRG. The TRG was developed, you know, you could really say was developed with industry. Okay, we had a committee there with the members from the New South Wales Minerals Council, the MEU, the AWU, and the CCAA, and we had great support from Immersed. So it was a very strong industry effort, very collaborative, to come up with, well, two things really. One is, what is the problem? You got to understand the problem first before you can come up with a solution. Okay, so what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Really understand that well, and then how do we actually solve it? Okay, both of those things were done through extensive collaboration with the industry. I will say, and for those of you who've been around for a little while, our initial response, or initial, you know, I guess approach to this back in the, you know, 22, 23, was we were promoting vehicle collision avoidance technology as a standalone feature, as a standalone control. And I can say today that we were clearly wrong in doing that. It's not a standalone control. It is a control, and I'll talk about it does have its place. It absolutely does have its place, but it is not a standalone control. And it was around about sort of, I guess, in this period here, after 2023 forum and July 2023 discussion paper, that we changed our view. Okay, we learned from the consultation we'd done and the research that we'd done, and we changed our view. We realised that technology, whilst it's part of the solution, it ain't the silver bullet. And I'll explain why that is on this next couple of slides, just really quickly. So this picture kind of sums it up a little bit. You've got your goalkeeper there. That goalkeeper represents collision avoidance technology, and the ball rushing towards the net is an adverse vehicle interaction. And whether it gets to the net or not, if it gets to the net, you have an interaction. If it gets saved, well, your collision avoidance tech has done the job. And I'll explain the context of that as we get into this slide. So have a think about what collision avoidance technology does do, and just think of it in terms of if you have a modern day car. I don't, but my wife does. You know, it beeps, it vibrates the steering wheel, it even slams on the brakes, it steers, detects our lack of attention, maintains safe following rules, etc. So why isn't that technology the silver bullet for the industry? Well, think of it in terms of the time frame that the technology acts in. What has gone wrong for the brakes to be activated for you? What controls have failed for you to be into that situation? So if you're just about to slam into something and the car's had to put your brakes on or steer for you, then obviously there's been a few failings leading up to that. Okay, it's either your fault, other person's fault, or a combination of the two. Collision avoidance technology is last second, and in some cases, it's last millisecond, pull yourself out of the poo type intervention. All other controls and defenses have failed for you to be in that situation. And will it save you? Will it intervene in time as intended? So if you treat collision avoidance technology like the silver bullet without investing in the time and effort to get the other defences working right, it is a bit like playing a game of soccer with only having the goalkeeper. Okay, the other team is just getting free shots at the goal, and eventually, old matey here is going to miss one. And that's why collision technology gets overwhelmed. In the past, we've relied on it too heavily. We've relaxed our focus on all the other defences and sort of relied on collision avoidance technology too much, and it gets overwhelmed. And even the leading systems, even the most advanced systems out there we have now, still get overwhelmed if we don't get the other defences set up. And I'll talk about what they are as we get there. But it is important, and I will make it very clear that it does have its place. And as a regulator, we are encouraging, mines and operators to review and assess collision avoidance technology and see if it fits their mine, but only in the context of the other defence controls as well. So I'll talk about now what's in the TRG and why it's different. So as I mentioned previously, just before, it was developed in genuine partnership with industry and immersed. It provides a layered defence approach from all the way from site design through to machinery intervention. It's scalable, and this is really important, especially for the quarry sector. It is scalable. So from the smallest quarries out there where you might just be running a couple of trucks and an excavator, all the way up to where you might have 4 or 5 excavators and 20, 30 trucks running around. You can use the concepts out of this TRG and apply, you can apply the framework and what's applicable for your mine site, okay? And depending on how complex your site is, it will depend on how much of the TRG you need to take up. And that's pretty much how it works. Alignment with immersed is important. I'll talk about that in a minute. The TRG recognises and addresses the human limitations, and it does that by having that layered defence model. And if you are not familiar with that, I'll talk about that in a moment. And most importantly, and this is the key point, and I'm going to keep harping on about this until people get sick of me, but the real value in this TRG is the common framework and language that we can adopt across the industry. And it's going to enable the sharing and the collaboration and the learning of lessons to a degree that we've never had before as an industry if we do this well. The last point of this slide I want to point out is that because we have aligned this with immerse, and this was actually a genuinely collaborative effort with immerse, we've come up with some stuff that they liked. They took it and went, well, we can make that better. We adopted that back again. So there was a real genuine sort of back and forth with immerse. Because we've done that, we're not asking the industry to make a choice between us and immerse. Immerse is a global leader when it comes to vehicle interaction safety, okay? You can take this TRG on, or if you choose, you can go the full immerse journey if you want to, okay? Which pretty much makes the TRG redundant, except for the other elements of it. But yeah, we're not asking you to make a choice with this. It's all one and the same. I'll just get this to the next slide. So what's in the TRG? Okay, so this is the core of the TRG. It's the immersed 9-layer defense model. Okay, so 1 to 9. I'll just quickly point out, once I get this working, sorry, the technology, the most important layers, and this is what I was talking about before with the goalkeeper, the most important layers are layers 1 through to 7. Okay, and if you look at what they are, it's not rocket science. It's nothing new. So equipment specifications, standards, physical barriers, operational procedures, maintenance procedures, traffic management, vehicle-specific training, licensing, fitness operate systems. You don't need the technology there. You can just have the process. Operator compliance, like vehicle checks and awareness stuff. And this stuff is basic. Lighting, mirrors, cameras. It's pretty straightforward. Road markers. What the value in it is, it gets us all talking the same language in the same structure. That's the value. Okay, we can talk about what layer 3 is. We can talk about layer 7. We can talk about what we've learnt in layer 4. Okay, what's working well, what's not. That's the value of it. The goalkeeper, he belongs down here in layers 8 and 9. So they're your advisory systems or your interlocking systems. So this one beeps, detects, vibrates the chair of the operator who's fallen asleep, like last second sort of stuff. This one slams your brakes on, number 9. Okay, that's your last millisecond sort of stuff. You don't want to be in that situation. So that's the core. That's the core of the document. It's how it works. Everything else basically hangs off that, all the guidance and everything else, but that's the key concept. You cannot rely on 8 and 9 if you haven't got 1 through to 7. And basically, as it says here on the side here, your time runs out. So these sort of operational controls, like site requirements, you're doing that years ahead of an incident occurring. So it's a long way out. All the way down to operator awareness sort of stuff, that's minutes. This stuff is milliseconds. I'll keep moving, sorry, I've probably taken a bit longer. I'm not going to talk about this too much. This is just what's in the TRG. It's very straightforward guidance. We've purposely made the language very straightforward, so you should be able to read it and know straight away what it is. It's nothing complicated. So each layer has an extensive list of the controls that you can apply at your mine site. The document itself, in terms of how you apply this at your mine and what you can do to take steps forward, it lays it out very clearly within the document. It's essentially a 4-step process. You conduct a baseline assessment. It's important at this point you're really honest with yourself. Don't over-egg it. Don't sort of give yourself a tick when you haven't got a tick. Conduct that assessment to see where you sit on the maturity level. If you're honest with yourself, it's going to give you a very strong, I guess, emphasis to change or burning platform for change. Step 2, that's the most important one. Review your existing operational controls under layers 1 to 7. By far and away the most important. And a key here is just to map your controls to the layers, which is pretty straightforward. For example, if you have a traffic rule about right of way, that might fall into layer 4, for example, which is rules and procedures. Or if you have something around fatigue monitoring, that might fall into layer 5. So map your controls across to the layers, update your procedures, so it matches the structure in the TRG, and then you've locked it. You've locked and loaded it, and then you can then talk all the same language as the rest of the industry. Steps 3 to 4. So number 3 is basically if you've got specific things at your mine site that aren't in the TRG, which is very possible, make sure that you're assessing and implementing those, and then look at your reactive controls, your goalkeeper. So it's all in the TRG, lays it out pretty importantly, but I will stress, update your PHMPs, update your traffic management plans to reflect the structure in the TRG. Then you've got it all locked and loaded. So what does the regulator expect? Well, I expect everyone to approach this with goodwill and a what's best for industry spirit. Okay, that's number 1. This is an opportunity for the mining industry and worker representatives and the regulator to change the rules, okay, to change the rules on how we come together to make a real difference. And if we do it successfully, and just being open, if we do it successfully with the TRG, okay, there's other things we can apply this same approach to, like fires on mobile plant. As a regulator, we'll position ourselves as the enabler of learning and alignment, okay, to help achieve real outcomes across the industries. We'll support this through our forums. We'll support this through our communications. We'll do all those things, but we'll make sure that we become the real enabler for you as a mine site to really collaborate with the rest of the sector, and not just your sector, because later on today I'm talking to the metallurgists and the coal sectors, okay, across all sectors in New South Wales. Okay, it's establishing a consistent approach. Establishing this consistent approach will enable the industry to build on their learnings rather than an individual approach. And ultimately, you know, as I said before, it's going to replace duplication with collaboration. I'm going to be clear. As a time frame, our expectation is by the end of 2026, okay, we expect every operation to have integrated the TRG layers into their safety management systems. Okay. I will stress though that this is not an enforceable legal requirement. We're not going to sit here and give you a notice for it. Okay. But if we all do it with a goodwill approach and what's best for industry and what's best for our workers at the end of the day, this is going to be a real success. To the executives on the call, and I know there's a few executives out there, I expect you to enable and encourage this collaboration, okay, and really back your teams to make these changes. And to the site leaders, you know, we expect you to drive the implementation and be honest about what's working or not, so we can solve problems together. My personal aim for this is that it will reach a point where you will be the odd one out if you haven't adopted this framework and language in the TRG, okay? And I guess I want to emphasize something like, we don't need 50 different approaches to address adverse vehicle interactions, okay? We just need one really good approach that we're all aligned with. And I'll repeat that. We don't need 50 different approaches, okay? We just need one really good approach that we're all aligned with. Righto. I think this is my last slide. So what's next for us? Yeah, just give me a sec to get this working again. So what's next for us? Well, full implementation and awareness. So we'll continue to roll this out through our forums and other media. You'll see it from time to time. I mean, today is obviously a really critical point in that process, as you know, people online, and you can ask some questions later on. We will be rolling out an implementation video for the TRG. That'll actually get launched at our mine safety seminar on the 29th of October. So I'll open that seminar and I'll play the new video. So yeah, if you guys are coming to that, something to look forward to. Although I think the speaker after me is probably going to be the better one, but that'll at least open up for us. We will be putting together, or we started the process already of putting together an ancillary form. So when this comes into play, and I'm hoping I can get this done by Q1 next year, it's a few complicated updates to our system. But essentially, once it's implemented, when you have a vehicle interaction incident, you'll be getting an ancillary form like you currently do with, say, your fire or mobile plant. And that ancillary form will be asking you to provide an investigation details in the form of the TRG. Okay. At around about sort of midway through 2026, we will run an assessment campaign to assess how the implementation is going of the TRG, and more importantly, to assess the effectiveness of it, to see if it's working well. And we are exploring with Immersed at the moment to conduct some implementation workshops in 2026 too. So just early days on that, but we'll look to run some probably some workshops probably around about Q2, second half of next year, for any mines that might be struggling to, you know, or need some guidance or additional help to get the TRG online. Our measure of success as a regulator, it will be the reduction of the severity of vehicle interactions. I could sit here and say we want to see the reduction of reduction of adverse vehicle interactions. However, as a measure, that could actually drive reporting underground. So we want you to continue to report the incidents. We want to understand, well, is this working in terms of reducing the severity? You know, we might see a reduction in the incidents as well, which is great, but we do not want to drive the reporting underground. We need to understand if this is working or not. We need the best guidance and the best data as a regulator. And ultimately, you know, the other measure for us will be, you know, seeing an industry that's unified under this TRG in its efforts to improve vehicle safety. So this is my very last slide. So what's next for you on your mine site? Very simple. Download the TRG. If you haven't already, download it today. Download it after this call. Don't say tomorrow, because it won't happen. Download it now. You can literally just Google Surface Rovoa TRG, and it should come up. Well, it comes up in my Google search, but maybe that's because I'm the chief inspector, but it comes up. So give that a Google. If not, we'll send out the link after this call anyway. You'll have that link. And yeah, make a start today. So, if we do this right, we will achieve a unified industry, and we will collaborate. So that's it from me. I want to thank you for your time today, and yeah, let's get to work. Let's get it done. Right. I'm happy to take any questions, or if there's any questions in the chat.